Okay, we've briefly changed our plans just a little bit, just on account of whether you want to call it absences or illness or both, actually. Okay, so one of the things that we see is, if you remember from before the dinosaurs, okay, you were evaluated upon that, and one of the last fish that they had talked about was the cephalaspis. And eventually, what happened is limbs started to grow out of that. Evolution was jumping forward, and limbs started to grow out of that body. And upon doing so, animals started to move on to land. Although that's amphibians, okay? The first set of tetrapods that went from the water to land. And when that happens, does the skeleton have to be heavier, or is it going to be lighter with tetrapods? I think it's a trick question. You would think so, but it's actually heavier, okay? And the reason that we can use this type of logic for that, any type of athlete perhaps, or any type of individual, even if they're older in age, if they have surgery done on probably more commonly their knees, could be their ankle, but if they have to do some rehabilitation on their knees, why would they be doing that in a whirlpool? Okay, resistance for one, but when I hear resistance, okay, you're not totally, I just want to make sure we're communicating. You're talking about this type of resistance, moving the knee? Yeah, that would probably be true. It's going to be tougher to move in water than what it would be on air or in air. That's true. But as that individual might be walking in that pool, is that really tough on their skeleton, or is it maybe a little easier? And why would that be? Well, yeah, that's true. That's going to promote the blood flow to help healing. That's true. But typically, what do we do in water? Do we sink or float? We mainly float. So that water is going to be help pressing up on our body. So it's going to take a little bit of weight off. So if that's the case in water, which it is, when animals started to move on to land, their skeletons had to be much, much tougher because their density increased that much. Amphibians were first to do that. Then we move on to these guys, the reptiles, okay? We make reference to the amphibians quite a bit, just because these chapters, they just get to be so much larger that you have to pick and choose what we think is important. We just got done with the fish, we do the reptiles, then after this it's the birds, and then finally we wrap the semester and school year up with the mammals. All that set aside, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you see reptiles? Okay, and what's the significance of that scaly skin as opposed to the amphibian counterparts? That's what I said. We make reference to the amphibians quite a bit. They're both tetrapods. Their limbs are accommodating to be on the ground in air instead of in the water, okay? But why is their tough, scaly skin important? What's true about amphibians when they are reproducing and breathing? Now, amphibians now. Where do you find amphibians? Why is that significant? You're right. In or by water?
Because they came from the water.
Okay. Can they breathe through their skin? Amphibians. Is their skin soft and moist? Certainly. Okay. So amphibians are tied to water. Okay. Reptiles, like you had pointed out, have that tough, scaly skin. We're able to move further inland. Now, not only is that with their skin, but how is that true with reproduction? Okay. How are their eggs developing? Are they in water or are they on land? Do they have a shell that envelops them?
Reptiles?
Yes, reptiles. Yes, they do. So that was another advancement in what nature selected these animals to do, is to reproduce on land. Okay, so some characteristics of these reptiles, like you had just said, their skin, it's tough and it's dry, okay? It offers protection against desiccation, which means drying out, okay? Because that's why amphibians have to stay close to water, because if they get too far away from water, their skin can dry out, and that's one of the things that helps them to breathe. It's a supplemental aspect. Now, you got to think about this for a little bit. This is not the only time you've seen animals with chromatophores. We saw them last semester as well. We even spent a lot of time watching this on Nova. It was a type of mollusk. So think about that for just a moment. What type of mollusk would have these within them? Okay. For those of you who tune in, you can be doing the same thing. What did we talk about last semester and watched a video over that had this same concept? And it was a mollusk. It was a cephalopod. Okay, so first of all, you have to know who the mollusks are. And a mollusk has these two characteristics. Remember? Well, you're close. That's more so with the arthropods. But inside the mouth, all mollusks have this. Starts with an R. Okay? And then all mollusks also have this. It's more apparent and easier to see in bivalves like clams than what it is for cephalopods. So what is it that clams have on the outside that cephalopods have on the inside? Okay? So shell is the other characteristic. So now we're getting closer. Who were our cephalopods now? Nautiloids. Now you can think 8 limbs. Well, okay, that's an arthropod though. And its cousin you actually dissected in the lab too. Squids. Squids, octopods, nautiloids. There's actually a fourth one that we watched that video over. Cuttlefish, that's right. So cuttlefish actually have this ability too. But they'll actually take this one step further because they can change their color on impact, not on impact, but on impulse. But it is true there are some reptiles that can do that as well. And it's actually on the cover of a previous, per se, of this book. And that is right here. So, with this animal diversity, what type of animal is this? Nope, it's a reptile. It's one that can change color. It starts with a C, and you're going to go, oh, I knew that. It's a chameleon. That's right. these can actually change their color on impact. And one of the weird things that's about when you're looking at chameleons, their eyes don't always lock in with binocular vision. And if you've ever seen Sing or Sing 2, is it Ms. Crawley, I think? Heck, she has an apple in her eye for parts of that. But yeah, a chameleon can change the direction of both eyes at will and one can be looking to the left and the other one can be looking down and to the right. And that is rather unique and odd as well. Ms. Crawley. Okay. So one of the things that we see, very tough skin. Okay. And color-bearing cells that give many lizards and snakes their colorful hues. So it's actually a way to identify, because when you see their skin after they shed that, you can actually identify possibly what species that is. And of course, when we say diamond back, that means there's diamonds that's actually on its back. Okay, shapes, not jewels. Okay, so with that, that's how you can identify some of these animals. Okay. So here's another change from the amphibians besides the skin. Okay, again, they got these scales. Okay, but the embryology or embryonic development. Okay, reptiles lay their eggs in sheltered locations, which means they've got that protective shell, so they can be terrestrial rather than aquatic like their amphibian counterparts. So then once we get down here, we'll go to the next slide, which just has one dash on it. Okay? We don't necessarily need to get to the jaws yet. Okay, and then this will be the last thing that we talk about today. Okay, I'm not going to go any further than this. Okay, this embryonic development, just like what we said, these young will hatch as lung-breathing juveniles. Okay, rather than aquatic larvae. Now, yes, these reptiles can spend time in water. Of course, we know that with alligators, crocodiles, caimans. Okay, those are certainly reptiles. There's also different types of sea snakes that are aquatic. Of course, turtles will spend their time in water, but they can also spend time on land. But this is what we're getting at, aquatic larva. What does larva mean to you? Because we did talk about that last semester. What is a larva? Is that an infant, a juvenile, or an adult? That's right. So that was one of the 6 characteristics of arthropods, okay, that certainly attributes to their success, because larvae will not have the same food source as juveniles or adults. So in this case, okay, one of the things that we see is, as far as maybe not necessarily, I suppose you could say frogs, but maybe it's more so associated with toads. Now, we don't need to get so specific upon what's the difference between one and another, but tadpoles, okay, actually have a tail, okay, that they have as an aquatic larva, and eventually that tail drops off because you don't see that tail on tadpoles and frogs. It's just something that The way the man upstairs designed them is that it just actually falls off. But they begin their lives as aquatic larvae. Okay, so we will continue with this tomorrow. That's all I have. We will tune in. Yes, I'm looking back there. Well, tune in next time, right? Yeah. Catch up to you next time.